So I just want to talk about something, and it's important. It is important for our society because we hear it every day of the week, and that is there's full employment. Basically, everybody has a job. Every person who needs a job has a job. Anybody who wants a job has a job. And maybe in some aspects that's true, but in a lot of reality, and I'm sure everybody knows on the ground, if you talk to any business owners at the moment, particularly in the private sector, a lot of them won't employ anybody else because they're struggling to make ends meet at the moment. Because obviously the higher cost of living and obviously the minimum wage has gone up, etc., etc. So a lot of businesses are not hiring too much. And if you look in Cavan at the moment, like for example in County Cavan, there's maybe only about 34 jobs advertised, maybe at most. And that's in all of County Cavan. Think about that, and nearly 100,000 people, only about 34 jobs. And you look at the number, the amount of people on the live register, the dole, pretty much. It is a lot. And take for example, I know so many young people who are just coming out of school, secondary school, in 1920 to 18 even at that age, and they can't get jobs. They simply can't get it. No one's employing. Because again, as I say, the private sector, they don't want to employ anybody because they already have enough staff, and they don't want to be paying any more out in money in terms of that. And it's the same in the government departments and local authorities, etc., etc. It's all outsourced now to private companies, etc., etc. That's what the civil service is nowadays, and the civil service, the local authority work, etc. All privatised, all set out to private investors in Northern Ireland, private companies in Northern Ireland. And this is the thing: there's no jobs. I know 3 or 4 men who I've been trying to look for jobs for them too in the background, and there's simply nothing for them. Simple as that. There's simply nothing for them. And not only that, too, this is the kicker, but a lot of people, they're looking for full-time jobs and they're getting part-time. There's no other employers in the private sector, they don't want to pay the full amount. So they give them part-time. It's the same in a lot of, particularly in the private sector, not so much in the public and civil service because they're usually always full-time jobs. In majority of cases, it doesn't seem to be many part-time. But what I'm trying to say in the private sector, I know of a man, that got a job recently in a supermarket in the town there, and he was looking for full time. He wanted full time work, and they could only give him part time. They wouldn't willing to pay because they would have to pay him, because again the minimum wage has gone up, etc., etc. And they don't want to do that. There's a lot of money if you think about a supermarket. There's a lot of money that they pay out, and different things like that. Small businesses. Nobody wants to employ anybody. Pretty much, it's the same with everything nowadays. Nobody wants to employ anybody to do anything. People want people to work for nothing. And it's the same with the government and the civil service. They want people to work for nothing and not pay them. And that's simply the truth. And it's the same with the private sector now. They don't want to employ people. Suppose that years ago they were loving employing people, to employ as many people as they could. But even you see in your local supermarket, etc., etc., it's all these self-checkouts. There's nobody on the tills anymore. They're getting rid of people because they don't want to pay people. Suppose that they don't want to pay people anything. Simple as that. That's what the harm's coming. So the government's now out of this full employment is bullshit. If we go out to the Dole office on sign-on day, in Cavan or even Dublin or wherever we could go, you would find tons of people on job seekers allowance, etc., etc., who can't find a job. But again, in fairness to some of them are trying very hard. I know, as the same few people I know, they're trying very hard. They're doing their best. They're trying their best. They're sending in CVs and they're getting nothing back. Simple as that. Because at the end of the day, you can only do so much. You can send in CVs as much as you want, but if they don't reply to you, don't answer you back, what can you do really? And I don't blame these 3 people that I know that are on job seekers. They don't want to be. They want to try and make a life for themselves and stuff like that. And it's not fair too. A lot of the people that are going into are non-Irish citizens, etc., etc. They're getting bigger probably lump sums than Irish citizens because it's just straight up the truth. It probably is happening because it doesn't make any sense why there's so many people from other countries on the dole compared to Irish citizens. Because there's more nearly people from other countries on the dole. But anyway, it's a different story for a different day. But it is, in my opinion, is a false narrative because if we went in the morning, if I went in the morning and give up my job, right? Take for example, I tried to find a job, so I couldn't do it. Simply that there's no jobs going. Nobody would employ you because nobody wants to employ anybody now because there's too much in tax and it's too much in paying if you're sick, you have to pay sick leave. And no company wants to do that. So they want to reduce majority companies or businesses that reducing the size of their workforce because it's a lot more cheaper and they don't want to take on any more people. Even take for example schools there. And I know of a school just outside Monaghan there in County Monaghan, and they do FCA what I did, and I did it too. I worked for the local authority back a good long time ago. When I was doing FCA, we had to do work experience every Wednesday, take for example, and they done it every Friday. So they do a few hours, 8 hours or whatever it may be in some shops or wherever the person got work for part. Obviously not paid. Some of them did get paid, but long story short, and they were said too that they couldn't get anybody even just for not to even be paid for it. The business didn't want to employ them because if they fail or things like that, because the cost of insurance, you have to remember, has gone up too. So this in every regard it's pretty fucked. But what I'm trying to say, in my opinion, I do think this is a false narrative, misinformation, disinformation from the government because it doesn't seem to be real. It'd be different if there's 100 million jobs. You walked everywhere, there's jobs going here, jobs going there. There's no jobs. There's no jobs. In County Cavan, there's 34 jobs at the moment. Around that, that's advertised. It doesn't seem to be true. If there's full employment, there wouldn't be jobs advertised. There wouldn't be jobs advertised, and there wouldn't be so many people on the dole too on job seekers allowance. Now, I talked about this before in my video just before the election of the reforms to job seekers allowance and social welfare. I do think there should be a limit on job seekers. First of all, I do think, and I think there should be, and even just the only dole too. Unless you're sick, obviously, unless you have you're physically sick, etc. Sick, you shouldn't be taken off, of course. But to take for example job seekers, if you're fit and able to work, you should work. You should try your best. I know it's easy to say it. In theory it works, but in reality it doesn't. But in reality too, it's important for people to develop their social skills, etc. But I do think it should be limited, as I say, about a year and 5 months. That's what I think it should be. It's a good thing that we have it, of course. If people lose their jobs, they have to go on the job seekers allowance. And some people have lost their job. I know people that have lost their jobs because businesses went under, etc. And nobody's disputing that because it's a good system for somebody to go on if they did lose their job. True, no fault of their own, just to say. Because again, if your business, if you're working for a company that goes bust, it's not your fault. You didn't break the company. But again, as I say, a year and 5 months should be the limit. There shouldn't be anything above it or below it. What I mean by that is anybody that doesn't have a job by that time should probably be reduce in payments. Not saying cut them off entirely, but reduce their payments and try and get them to seek work somewhere. But again, there's a lot more things I could say about it, but I talked about it a lot in the other video. But I do think it's a false narrative, misinformation, disinformation. But again, I don't think it's true. I think the majority of people know that too. It's just kind of this throw around line that they're using because it's a good, because you see it every day, before every election, the job seekers figures, how many people on the dole, etc. come out. They say, oh, the government's doing a great job. Look at the amount of people on working, etc. But in theory, not really, because again, you couldn't really count part-time. I don't really count part-time work as employment because you're basically just part-time. If you're working 40 hours and you have a job, like part-time work is pretty much, I wouldn't classify really that as a job. I know some people would, but I do think only full-time should be classified as a job. I assume the government's doing that too because they inflate the figures, because a lot of people I know too who could get jobs, etc. in supermarkets get part-time, they don't get full-time. And they get only a few hours a week. That's it. There's people I know too that are working on different things in factories, and in some cases in factories too, they're getting part-time work too. So it's just kind of inflating the figures to make the government look good. Thank you.